asked you to give detailed recommendations on how Investec can counter those threats. It was for 15 marks, and the 5 threats times 3 recommendations, okay? And this is what I didn't explain very well. So you've identified the threats from the external environment. Now you have to recommend to Investec how they can combat those threats. And of course, the way that you combat any external influence or force is to use your internal strengths. So your recommendation would have to revolve around an internal strength which can be used to combat the external threat. And that's what I didn't explain very clearly the other day. So for example, here's the external threat: competition from other retail banks, okay? An external threat from the market environment. All right, so what does this person said and got good marks for? Setting higher standards for service delivery. So that's an internal thing. That's an internal strength. And then the person specifies what kind of service delivery: reducing call center waiting times, adding features to its mobile banking app, etc. Okay, so the person has identified the appropriate internal strength, explained how this can combat that particular external threat. So here's another external threat: slow economic recovery post-COVID, resulting in constrained consumer spend. So here the person recommends special programs to stimulate credit appetite, for example. And so these are products that Investec can do. Of course, that's an internal thing. So they are recommending an internal strength, in this case, the products, which could combat the fact that they are an elite and they only provide for elite staff. So they would have to make sure that they hang on to the elite staff by offering really good products, okay? And that's exactly what Ms. Mawila was trying to explain here, and that's what confused me a bit. So I just wanted to clarify that. Okay, so she says in her explanation, we found that many students performed poorly in these questions. Recommendations given by most students were vague and were not detailed enough to earn full marks. Okay, so we awarded 3 marks for each recommendation that is linked to the threats. That's first thing. You had to identify your recommendation, and then she reminds us that organizations should use the internal strengths to counter external threats. So that was the thing that I didn't explain clearly. So I hope that I've clarified that now. And let me just minimize this. I think it was TC. Is TC in the meeting yet? I think it was TC who was asking me to clarify that last week's, on Thursday. So I hope she is in the class, and I hope she now understands. So remember, anything that is a recommendation requires you to use your own knowledge and apply it, your own knowledge and your own understanding of the module, and apply it. But you must base it, of course, in theory. Okay. So are there any questions at all about that? All right, and if not, let us start the actual PowerPoint, because there's quite a lot of information to go through, and then also the typical questions from lessons 5 and 6. And on that note, just bear in mind, in all of these workshops related to the lessons, I have focused on the typical aspects in each lesson that typically appear in the exams since 2020. Okay, that does not mean that the rest of the stuff in each lesson is not important, number one, and number two, that you can ignore it, because you never know. You could be asked anything. But I am focusing on the regularly asked sections, and my goal is to try and assist you to interpret, because although the same sort of topics are regularly asked, they are asked in slightly different ways. So you have to interpret what you are being asked regarding an external environment or an internal environment that we're going to look at today, so that you can apply the correct information and get good marks. So let me open my PowerPoint and let's get started. Lesson 5. Okay, so we're looking at the internal analysis, which includes resources, capabilities, and competencies, and various ways of analyzing the resources, capabilities, and competencies. Okay, so the outcomes, as specified in the study guide, is that students must be able to use a suitable model to analyze the internal environment to identify strengths and weaknesses, because that's why you're analyzing the internal environment, is to identify strengths, to build on them, and minimize weaknesses. Okay, so there are three tools that can be used in the internal analysis: the resource-based view, the resource-based view, which looks at resources, capabilities, and competencies in great detail. The functional analysis, which looks at the internal environment in terms of departments and what resources each department needs and what capabilities each department might have. And then the value chain analysis, which looks at the linkages between the various capabilities and aspects that happen in any kind of a business. And the value chain divides things into primary activities and support activities, but we'll look at each of these in a bit more detail. Okay, so all of this information for lesson 5 is in chapter 6 of the prescribed book. Figure 6.1, I can't remember what figure 6.1 says, so I'm just going to find it in my textbook, so I know why I told you to look at it specifically. Page 161. Okay, yes. On page 161 of the third edition of Practicing Strategy, shows very nicely where everything fits in. So when you have a moment, go and look at that. It puts everything in nicely into perspective: strategic resources and capabilities. Okay. So in lesson 4, as we saw, you studied the 2 important external environments. Oh, hang on. Hang on, I'm just going to try and cut off the video. Now, where do I do that? Record it. Okay, I hope I've now cut that off. Let me see. Okay. Apologies. I put a voice recording over that particular lesson because, of course, that was what I posted onto additional resources much earlier in the semester. And I just can't remember how to cut the recording off. So I'm not going to open up for now until I get past these slides that have voiceovers. I'm not going to open up my slideshow properly, okay? I'm just going to leave it like this so that I don't have this. You can't hear it, but I can hear it. Just trying to see if I can. Let me see if that helps. Okay, there we are. Right, sorry about that. So we looked at pestle, and somebody asked me if it's pest leg, or if it's this, or if it's that, or it's the next thing. Anything that includes, whichever order it's in, anything that includes all these different influences refers to the macro or the remote environment, okay? Then we looked at the market or task environment, but I warned you that sometimes it's also called the industry environment, okay? And for the market or task or industry environment, you obviously will use Porter. Okay, so the strengths analyses help to identify opportunities and avoid threats in the external environment. Okay, so there we go. So lesson 5, we are looking at the internal environment in order to be able to identify strengths and weaknesses and apply that to the external environment to identify opportunities and threats. And remember, all of that is called a SWOT analysis, but as I mentioned in a previous class, the SWOT analysis is not an external tool, and it's also not an internal tool. So if you're asked to mention 2 internal tools to evaluate the internal environment, you cannot say SWOT. You must say RBV, functional, or value chain. Okay, SWOT is an overall analysis. So you can't apply it to simply the internal or simply the external environment. Okay, so resources and capabilities. Now, resources. Let's focus on resources first, because you get asked questions on resources in different ways. Okay, you might be asked to identify, say, 5 resources, and we'll look at a few questions in a few minutes. So you might be asked to identify resources, in which case you have to go to the case study and identify the resources. But first of all, you have to mention that resources can be tangible or intangible. And then go and look for examples and say, in the SPA case study, the 4,000 whatever employees was a tangible resource, and brand recognition is an intangible resource. So you must say whether your resources are tangible or intangible. Okay. Resources can also be divided into 5 different physical and financial and all sorts of things. And sometimes you have to mention that as well. Okay, so let's just look at the study guide. Okay, to the lesson 5 again. Okay, resources. Where does resources start? Here we are. Okay. So resources can be tangible and intangible, but they can also be divided into 5 primary categories, okay, such as financial, physical, human, organizational, and technological. And of course, into each of these categories, you can get tangible and intangible examples. So if you are asked to discuss resources, you normally have to talk about tangible, intangible, and these 5 categories, okay? But if you're asked to identify resources from a particular case study, that doesn't really mean you have to do an evaluation. In other words, it does not mean that you have to apply VRIO. You only apply VRIO if you're asked to evaluate the resources in a business. You might be given an example of a resource from a firm, and then asked to identify the strength of the resource, in which case you would then apply VRIO, okay? So that's two separate questions. You either get asked to identify resources or you get asked to evaluate resources. Okay, so that's page 66 of the study guide. So the VRIO is a tool to evaluate resources. Okay, so that's why I say separate the two. And on this note, I would say bear this strongly in mind, because your assignment didn't focus much on resources or VRIO. So I would think that this could very possibly turn into an exam question. Is somebody wanting to ask questions? I can hear somebody talking. Your question? Okay. Okay, so please just put a strong NB next to resources and VRIO. This could well be your part B. This could well be the essay answer, and an analysis of the resources and their value. There's somebody talking. Please mute yourself, but you're very welcome to unmute yourself and ask me any questions at any point in time. Remember, when I open this PowerPoint like I am now, I can't see hands up and I can't see the chat line. Okay, so yes, I would put an NB next to resources and VRIO, because I think there might well be a question. I'm not the examiner, but I'm just saying that there hasn't been any focus on resources and VRIO in your assignment. So interesting, it could well be a question. Okay, so anything including resources, we'll come into all of the different internal tools, but let's look at the resource-based view, okay, which looks at resources and capabilities and how these together become competencies. Okay, so the capability of a firm is the ability to utilize resources for a new, unique end result. And page 65 shows it very nicely. Yeah, this slide shows it very nicely, or this diagram shows how everything ties up very nicely in the resource-based view. Okay, there's all the resources, there's the capabilities. So resources are tied up with capabilities, which means that you have workers who are skilled enough to be able to utilize the resources. And when they are skilled enough to utilize these resources properly, they become core competencies. And usually this is where your competitive advantage comes from. So to give you an old example, a number of years ago, probably, I don't know, 10 years ago, SANRAL, the South African rail company, went and bought a whole bunch of locomotives from China. When these locomotives arrived, so that's the resource, the locomotives. When the locomotives arrived, they discovered, A, that nobody knew how to drive these locomotives. In other words, there were no capabilities. And B, that the locomotives were too big for our rail system. So the resource became completely and utterly useless. Another example, also from the public sector, was also quite a few years ago. The Defence Force bought a whole bunch of fancy fighter jets for lots of money, brought them into the country, and discovered they didn't have any pilots who had any concept of how to drive these fighter jets. So they are rotting somewhere in some warehouse in Pretoria somewhere. So resource where there's no capability, so it's an absolute waste of time. So resources, for them to be useful, there must be capabilities. And the greater the capability to use the resource becomes a core competency. Okay. All right. Okay, so as I've said, when you link your resources and capabilities very, very, very expertly, you get core competencies, which can create competitive advantage, okay? So for UNISA, for example, providing quality distance learning is a core competency. So the resources that UNISA has is the learning platform, the staff, administrative staff, the lecturing staff, who must have the capability to utilize the learning management platform in order to produce excellent lecturing services. For Apple, the computer manufacturer, innovation is a core competency. Okay, so just to give you an example, so page 69, we can see how resources, capabilities, and VRIO contribute to building core competencies, because of course, to make sure that your resources are useful, that's why you go and evaluate them. So let's look at page 69. Here we are. So resources and the capabilities, we can look at the value, the rarity, the inimitability, and being able to be exploited by the organization. Okay. So you need to know what each of these criteria means. And if the resources, together with the capabilities, are concerned to be valuable, rare, you can't copy, inimitable, you can't copy, and the organization has the skills to utilize the resource, it becomes a core competency. Okay, let's just have a look at the definition. Okay, they don't give definitions here, but you're told to read section 6.2 of the prescribed book. Okay, so make sure you know what all of these mean. Okay, so I suggest that you look at the activity on pages 71 to 72 of the study guide to practically apply all the RBV tools. So let's have a look. Okay, so you're told to evaluate the Spur Corporation. Okay, yeah. What are the characteristics that resources and capabilities need to possess? I see there's a question here. Okay, then, but it doesn't show signs that what's going to be successful. Did somebody want to ask a question? I didn't know what that was referring to. Study guide. Okay, so what are the characteristics that resources and capabilities need to possess in order for them to become core competencies? So that, of course, is referring to the VRIO. So look through this very carefully to see how VRIO can be applied. Okay. Make sure you go through that very carefully in your revision. Okay, is there anything else I need to say? All right, so let's look at this middle paragraph. So the RBV will indicate whether a resource is a strength or a weakness. For example, Discovery, a medical aid, already had many resources it could utilize to build Discovery back. So Discovery utilized the existing resources and capabilities to create a completely different core competency, and they built the bank. So the RBV will also reveal resources for which the firm might not have the capability to utilize. And I've already told you about that particular example. So that's the resource-based view. Any queries about that? Somebody's asking questions and I don't know what platforms. Why is Lee not saying at least so that we can do other things? What is going on? I'm not sure what people are trying to say. Is this on my, let me have a look.
Lee, they might have followed your previous session's link and thinking that they're waiting for you there.
Oh, that might well be the case. Okay. Maybe what I must do is I must just post on the exam prep. I'll just post the link again. Let me just do that again.
Or you can just go into that specific chat that popped up and just post the correct link in there. So
I don't know where they are
that's there.
chatting on, though. They're probably chatting on that. I don't want to, mess around too much. So I'm just going to do that and say, this is the link for today. Okay. Well, I can't help it if they don't read. So there we go. Okay, how can I access the slides you are using? They are, as Jenna correctly says, these slides, this actual PowerPoint is on my eTutor site under additional resources. If you're not in my eTutor group and you really, 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 really want to access them, you can email me and I will. Just hold on, guys. I'm getting a bit irritated with all these messages now. I'm just going to see if I can access this chat group here. Okay, I've left messages for them now. So, Kate, please email me, although there's no need because actually there's no need to, because there's not going to be a recording available for either Thursday or today's session because the colleague, I'm an external lecturer. And the UNISA colleague who set up these things for me on the UNISA Teams platform is away until Monday, so he can't share those things for me, all right? So if you want the PowerPoint and you're not in my eTutor group, you're welcome to email me. I will put my email address here as well. All right. Okay, let's continue with the PowerPoint. So functional analysis, as I said, is focuses on the different departments the firm is divided into, for example, finance, marketing, etc. All the departments need to interact, so they need to have linkages so that all department objectives work towards the same goals. Of course, different departments will still need resources and capabilities to create core competencies. So it's just a different way of arranging the core competencies. Okay, so you can, your capabilities and your resources. So you can arrange your capabilities and resources according to the RBV, which is a general arrangement, or you can arrange it according to departments, but you still are evaluating the same thing. You are still utilizing the same thing. So for a manufacturing firm like Isuzu, for example, the production department might be very resource rich and thus need the capabilities to utilize these. A bank will be rich in financial resources and IT and need specific capabilities to succeed. Okay, so the functional analysis is just a different way of arranging your resources and capabilities. And I know this was asked. This was asked recently in an exam. So when we get to the end and we go through exam questions, I will try and find this particular, how this question was worded. Okay, the RBV was also asked in the assignment. I think that was in May, June last year. That was asked in the essay, I should say. And the functional analysis was a question. Then the value chain analysis, the third tool, is just another way of dividing up the resources and capabilities. In this case, it's primary and support activities. So let's look at page 76. Okay, so here are the primary and support activities. The primary activities contribute directly to the transformation of inputs and adds value. And they are production, outbound logistics, marketing and sales, customer service. And of course, in each of these primary activities, there are various departments that work. So manufacturing would be involved in production, logistics would be involved with outbound, etc., etc. So then your support activities, which support those, are admin, HR, procurement, and technology. Okay, so that's another way of evaluating one's resources and capabilities. Okay, so the primary activities, as we saw, contribute directly to transforming inputs into outputs, while support activities do not directly add customer value. Okay, but they are needed in order for the primary activities to perform. A careful analysis of the firm's value chain may reveal areas of wastage, which could cause unnecessary cost. And by eliminating these, value can be created. So, for example, Isuzu might have a procurement policy of just in time, which means ordering at the very last minute, which is not correctly applied. Thus, parts may be regularly out of stock, causing assembly line delays. So these are where primary activities start to conflict with each other. Management may need to reconsider the ordering process to identify blockages and fix the problem. So the blockages might be due to unskilled workers, and they might need to train their workers. Okay, so those are the three tools that you could be asked to use. Now, the value chain analysis has also been asked, and it is asked where you must identify various activities. I just want to see if I can find the relevant questions while we are on this. So I can give you the wording. Just give me a minute. I'm just going through all of the exam papers, which unfortunately I can't share with you. But I can't share them directly, but I can discuss. No, I can't find the questions offhand, but I will look again at the end. Okay, so you might be asked, so just in a nutshell, for the internal, for lesson 5, you must be asked to identify resources, in which case intangible, tangible, those 5 categories. You might be asked to evaluate resources, in which case you need to apply VRIO. You might be asked to evaluate the internal environment by applying the RB, resource-based view, in which case it's resources, capabilities, and how these connect to each other to become core competencies. Or you might be asked to do a functional analysis, in which case you have to look at which departments are mentioned in the case study and which resources and capabilities those departments would need. Or you might be asked to identify the various activities in a business or in a case study, in which case you have to go and look for the value chain items. And if you are asked this, please make sure that you list any activities under the correct heading of primary or support, according to, of course, the theory. Okay, so that's very important. As I said many times, although the whole purpose of the exam is to evaluate how well you can apply the theory, in other words, 80% of it is a practical application, you must ground your answers in theory. So you have to name what theory you're using, or briefly, one sentence, define the theory. Okay, and that is for questions 1 to 3 of part A. We're going to talk about part B, the essay question, at the end of the when I'm finished with lesson 6. Okay. Right, so lesson 5, as I've said, is identifying resources, capabilities, and the connection between resources, capabilities, and competencies. If you're asked to use the RVBV model to analyze the internal environment of a firm, you identify the main resources, possible missing resources, and which of these are strengths or weaknesses. Okay. The value chain, you must remember to list your capabilities that you identify, or the activities that you identify under primary and support activities. Okay, so that's lesson 5. Let's go back to the question paper that Ms. Mawila has in her exam guidelines. And the internal analysis was part B, the essay question. You were asked to write a 1-page essay to discuss the concepts of resources, capabilities, and core competencies, and illustrate each concept with examples from the Investec case study. Okay. Now, on this note, while we are looking at this question, please remember these technical criteria. I mean, the technical criteria, not sure if it's here or where. Oh, yeah. The technical requirements for your part B is worth 5 marks. So please make sure you bank those 5 marks. I mean, how easy are those marks? So make sure that you have a short paragraph of an introduction. Make sure you use headings and subheadings. So, for example, in that particular question, resources is a heading, capabilities is a heading, and so on. And then you need to use in-text referencing. So you need to have some theory, like defining what a resource is. And then in brackets at the end of your definition, give the source, that's in text. And then also your reference list, okay? And lastly, your conclusion. So that's where the 5 marks come from. 1 mark for introduction, 1 mark for headings, 2 marks for referencing, in text and reference list, and 1 mark for conclusion. So, I mean, those 5 marks can be critical in helping you pass. Okay, so you are told to discuss theory. And when you discuss theory, remember you must do in-text referencing. So you must do an in-depth theoretical discussion of the 3 concepts and then apply the theory to the case study. So let's look at Ms. Mawila's memo that she gave you. Okay, here we are, question 4. Let's see if she says anything else, or is that all she says? Okay, yeah, no, she doesn't give you a model essay. So it says, she says that 15 of the 20 marks were awarded to the content, with marks being allocated for proving understanding. Merely copying content from the prescribed material did not earn marks. Okay, so what you had to do was give some theory, give the in-text reference, and then look for examples from the case study to illustrate that resource definition or that capability definition and so on. Okay. I'm just looking again for any other internal questions.
Highly.
Yes.
So in the part where you are proving the technical understanding, that means you are making reference to the case study at hand, am I right? Not necessarily that you are using your own words to paraphrase what is in the textbook.
No, even if you paraphrase. Listen, referencing in the academic sense means whenever you're using somebody else's ideas, you have to give tribute to that person. You have to cite that person. So if
really,
you are, sorry, yes?
yeah, my question or comment is not on the referencing, but it's on the way you are speaking how Miss Mawili allocated the marks, right?
Yes.
Where she said the 15 marks, it's 3 marks for showing a theoretical understanding. So I'm saying to show that you understand, because she's saying copying material from the textbook or prescribed material does not necessarily show that you have understanding. So I'm saying to show that you have understanding, are you now saying you linking whatever that you are discussing back to the case study, as opposed to maybe just copying a definition or an explanation from the textbook?
Okay, yeah, to show understanding, you paraphrase. Okay, so paraphrasing shows understanding, but you do have to use theory. So you would have to define what a resource is, and that they are tangible and intangible, and then in brackets put your source. Okay, whether you've quoted from the, or whether you've paraphrased from the textbook, or whether you've paraphrased from the study guide. And then if you're quoting stuff from the case study, okay, you can either paraphrase or quote from the case study, but then you would also have to put in brackets that you got it from the case study. Okay, but what Ms. Mawila is saying is that for those 15 marks, never mind now the 5 marks for technical issues, which I went through, for the 15 marks, you have to show your understanding by using correct examples from the case study to highlight your explanation, your little theory explanation. So that's the connection. Yes, who's got a hand up? Let me just get to my people. Andile? Andile, you have your hand up. Would you like to ask a question? Or was that you asking the question just now? No, Andile, you don't want to ask a question? Right, let us continue then. If nobody else wants to ask anything regarding the internal environment, I'm going to move to lesson 6. Malcolm?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but please speak a little bit louder.
Okay. My connectivity was just dipping in and out. I believe you were discussing on when to use the specific tools of VRIO and RBB and which keywords to look for. Can you just go through that again?
Okay, all right. So the RBV would be if you're asked to identify resources, capabilities, and core competencies and how they link together, then you are going to use the RBV. If you are asked to identify the functional area, the resources and the functional areas in which occur, then you are going to do that functional analysis, identifying departments and the relevant resources for finance department or manufacturing department or whatever. Obviously, when I say relevant resources, I mean what is mentioned in the case study. For the primary activity, at least for the value chain, and I wish I could find that question, I think they used the word activities. Identify the activities that were used. Let me just see if I can find that question and read it out to you. I can't remember which exam paper it was in. Let me just see. No, I don't. I can't see it now. I know it was asked, and maybe it was in an assignment. Maybe I'm confusing. It was in an assignment. But let's go to lesson 6, and then I will try and find the wording for the value chain analysis. Does that help, Malcolm?
Yes, that helps. Thanks.
Okay,
if you don't
all
get
right.
to it, then I'll just pop you an email later today or something.
Okay. Any other questions in the chat line? All right, so just identify the 5 category resource-based view. There we are, Cameron. That's a decent explanation. Is the exam not closed book? No. No, the exam is open book, Andile. Where have you been? Have you not read Miss Mawela's exam guidelines? 3702 is closed book. MNG 3702 is closed book, but 3701 is an open book exam as clearly expressed in Ms. Mawela's exam guidelines, which means you can have your textbook available, you can have your study guide, etc. available, and obviously you do need to use referencing in part B for the essay. Okay. So evaluating resources is VRIO, that is correct. No, evaluating the internal environment is not VRIO. Evaluating the internal environment is either RBV, functional analysis, or value chain analysis. Okay. No, you don't have to include a table of contents in this case. That was for your assignment, but in the exam part B, you do not have to use a table of contents, okay? As Ms. Mawela's guidelines clearly specify, you must do introduction, conclusion, in-text referencing, reference list, and headings, okay? Don't see any more hands. Let's move to lesson 6. Yes, primary and support activities, that is the value chain. Right, lesson 6, which should be a relatively easy way to earn marks, except that students lose marks for very, very mundane reasons. So let's go through this. Okay, so it's in chapter 7 of your textbook. And of course, as we saw in lessons 1 and 2, there are 4 different levels, strategic levels in any environment. There's the corporate, there's the business level, there's the functional level, and there's the operational level. So chapter 6 focuses only on the business level. Now, many students in assignment 2 got confused when they had to identify the business level strategy for SPAR. They started talking about corporate level, business level, and all of that stuff. Ignore that. Okay, so the only level in terms of the strategies that you have to worry about is the business level, which is the competitive level. Okay, so that is the focus for lesson 6, the business level. Okay, so lesson 6 looks at 5 different competitive strategies. All right, please take note of that. Okay, and we're going to look at the 5 different strategies as well. And then I had many students ask me, but there aren't 5, there are only 4. And I'm going to repeat this many times, the focus level is 2 strategies, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to unpack that in more detail as we go along. Okay, so level, I'm not going to go through that. So the business level strategies. Okay, so cost leadership. Okay, broad cost leadership, broad differentiation, best cost, focus low cost, and focus differentiation. You see, there are the 5. Okay, so you have to discuss focus in 2 different ways. So the difference, if you now decide, if you're now trying to work out, okay, SPAR, we've got SPAR, now we must identify the strategy. No, let me use a different example. ShopRite, we've got ShopRite as a case study. Now I must identify the strategy. I can see it's cost leadership, but now is it broad cost or is it focus low cost? And the criterion you have to use there is the size of the market. So if there's a huge market, basically everybody, they are marketing to everybody, then it is broad cost leadership or broad low cost. If it is, if the business has the strategy directed to a very small market, for example, in comparison to ShopRite, what's the name of that company that sells all sorts of weird and wonderful things? Oh, it's in every single mall. Starts with a C. What am I thinking of?
Are you talking about Crazy Store?
Crazy Store. Yes, thank you. Crazy Store uses a focus low cost strategy. Okay, because their audience is a lot smaller, or their market, I should say, is a lot smaller than, for example, ShopRite. Okay, so remember, if you're trying to decide between broad low cost or broad differentiation and focus low cost or focus differentiation, look at the size of the market. Big market, it's going to be broad cost or broad differentiation. More of a targeted market, it's going to be focus low cost or focus differentiation. Okay. So, but just remember, focus is not one strategy, it's 2 strategies. Okay, so let's look at these in a little bit more detail. Okay, right, so when you are asked, and assignment 2 didn't really give many marks, you were asked to identify the business level strategy that SPAR used, but it was only for 2 marks because actually they wanted you to evaluate the strategy more than identify. But if you're asked to identify a strategy, okay, you must then say, okay, it's a cost lead. ShopRite has a cost leadership strategy. And then briefly, very briefly, identify the characteristics of the cost leadership strategy. Price sensitive, looking for bargains, can't afford much money, or whatever the case may be. There are lots of there are lots of criteria in your study guide and your textbook. So you have to mention those very briefly and then identify if there are any of those in the case study. Okay. So you must give a little bit of a foundation of the strategy you've chosen from a theory point of view, and then go and look for examples in the case study to support that. Okay. So a firm choosing the cost leadership would have to be very aware of costs, of course. Okay, so for example, Crazy Store is focus cost leadership. So some of the ways that firms can cut costs is to achieve economies of scale, high capacity utilization, technology, economies of learning and experience, etc. Okay, no frills also. So this is the brief theoretical foundation, and then you must go and look for examples of any of these things in the case study. All right, so there is a ShopRite example, I think, in your study guide. So you were asked to identify the business level strategy chosen by ShopRite. Now, on that note, one firm will only use one strategy. So, for example, going back to the assignment, you were asked to identify the strategy for SPAR. But of course, SPAR is a corporate association, and it had all of those many business units under its umbrella. But you were just asked to identify a general strategy, which was the best cost. Sometimes, though, you're asked to identify individual strategies for each of the business units. So just be sure that you are aware of that. But any single business will only utilize one business level strategy. So going back to the SPAR, some students try to apply focus to SPAR, they try to apply differentiation to SPAR, cost leadership to SPAR. No, SPAR would only utilize one business level strategy, one competitive strategy, which in this case was best cost. So one business will only have one strategy. So you can't try and apply all 5 strategies to the business. You've got to be brave and try and identify the strategy based on what the case study said. Okay. So in the study guide, ShopRite was the example, and you had to identify the business level strategy. And by now, even from your general knowledge, you should know that it offers cheaper lines. Therefore, it's going to be broad, low cost. You were also asked to consider where the stores are located and who the target market is. And you should have been able to identify that the stores are in very accessible venues. Okay. And broad, low cost because it's got such a wide market. Differentiation, again, look for quality. Customers who are not concerned about price, looking for unique qualities, and so on and so forth. Okay, so for the strategy to work, the firm must have a sustainable competitive advantage. In other words, their uniqueness is durable. So some examples of SA firms following broad differentiation are Apple, Woolworths, probably the best examples. Harley Davidson is a bit of a focus differentiation. Okay, so study guide page 84 has a gardening example you can look at. And the textbook talks about the Mr. Price example. So you can look at that in your own time as well. All right. So as I've said, in an exam, you must discuss focus strategies separately. Because they...
Ma'am, can I ask?
Yes.
Ma'am, when it comes to
yes,
business level strategy,
yes,
I want to know why was it best, said it was best for SPAR, best cost provider. And my
yes.
second question is, do you guys consider our reasoning behind selecting the strategy we selected?
Okay, because if you looked at the different business units identified in your case study, you would have seen that SPAR has different outlets that are for more elite customers and for very low cost customers, price sensitive customers. So because there was that mix, the best example of a business level strategy was best cost, because best cost is value for money. So in all of its, with all of its different outlets, SPAR is actually catering for everybody, both people looking for unique products as well as people looking for cheap products. So that's why best cost was the best, was the best option. Does that help?
Yes, ma'am, it does help.
Okay, Shanushka, does that help you? I see you're asking the same question. Show you something. Yeah, there's a hand up. Who's the hand? Marang, is it? And then Zanele after that. Marang, do you have a question?
Um, just a bit of clarity, Lee. You're saying the best, you'll be marking it in line with the best choice for the study case, despite the fact that even if I made a mistake and chose the wrong strategy, and my reasoning was convincing, or my reasoning was such that it was clear that I understand that specific wrong strategy that I chose, I will not get marks for that. Is that what you're saying?
Marang, I didn't get all of that. Can you just speak a little bit louder, please? Are you talking about assignment 2, the assignment 2 question?
Unfortunately, I'm writing a sub, so I don't have access to the assignments.
Oh,
But I'm
okay.
saying, yeah, I'm asking to get clarity
Yes.
from the answer that you've just given to the previous question.
Yes.
That even if I do not choose the correct strategy for the question asked, I do not get marks for the wrong strategy that I would have chosen.
Unfortunately
and
not.
given proper explanation. Okay.
Unfortunately
Right.
not. If you, for example, now using SPAR, that SPAR question in assignment 2, if you, for example, had said differentiation, as many people did, you did not get the marks. I just want to show you. Okay, wait, Stanel, does that help, Maran? Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Zanele. Okay, perfect. Zanele. Yes, Zanele, I'm listening. Do you have a question, Zanele? You can unmute yourself.
Oh, hi, Lee.
Yes.
I also have a question regarding the business level strategy.
Yes.
Last semester, we had a question regarding these strategies. So
Yes.
I guessed a wrong strategy because I am also writing a sub.
Yes.
And can you please give me clarity on the last semester's question paper?
Okay, so was that in the exam paper? The
Yes.
2023 semester 1 exam paper?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just going to look at how the question was asked. Just find it. Okay, that was McDonald's. Briefly identify and discuss the business level strategy used by McDonald's. Your discussion should be supported by examples from the case study. Okay, and the answer was also best cost. Okay, because McDonald's is a middle of the road takeaway. All right, so it offers value for money products to a wide variety of people. So that is why it was best cost. Is that what you are referring to?
Hello.
That was the semester 1 question on McDonald's.
Lee, can you repeat your answer? I didn't hear you clearly.
Okay, so semester 1's question was on McDonald's, and you were asked to identify, using examples from the case study, the business level strategy used by McDonald's? And the answer was also best cost, because McDonald's offers middle of the road takeaway products. So it's not the most expensive takeaway, and it's not the cheapest takeaway outlet. It's the middle of the road. In other words, it provides value for money. That's the outline of best cost, is value for money.
But Lee, use a table to answer.
Zanela, I can't hear you.
We were given a table that we must structure our answers in.
Okay, that's a completely different thing. That was the first question. I went through that many lessons ago. So you are talking about the first question where you were asked, distinguish between 4 levels of strategy in business organizations. Is that the one?
Yes, how do we tackle it?
Yes, that comes from lessons 1 and 2. And there is a table in the study guide. I'm not going to waste everybody's time now because I've been through that already. If you look in lessons 1 and 2 of the study guide, I can't remember exactly if it was lesson 1 or lesson 2. There is a table in there which you should have applied for that question. So that's a completely different thing to what we're talking about now.
Oh, it's not similar to this lesson.
No, no. You didn't have to identify any business level strategy there. That was in question 4 of your, or question 3 of the June exam. Okay, so please look at lessons 1 and 2 and go and look for the table of the 4 different levels of strategy and the types of decisions that are made and which level of management makes it. Okay.
Okay.
TC? Morning, TC? Yes.
Morning. I got in the assignment too, I got the SPA wrong. And the
Yes.
reason was that I'm hearing what you're saying. And my question is, what is unique there at SPA that I don't find at ShopRite or Checkers except their in-house brand? That's the only unique thing. And then if I'm basing that based on that alone, then ShopRite would also be the ShopRite part I understand. But for me, the question is, it's exactly ShopRite is exactly or Checkers. It's okay, Checkers is a bit more pricey. No. But looking at the location, okay, I'm staying in Centurion and we have Spa almost every 5 kilometers away. 5 kilometers the Spa. And looking at the location, years ago you'd find it in towns only, but now in Mamelodi, there's 4 spas and it's a township. So that is why my thinking was that it offers, it's a broader section. It's no longer based only in town, but they have tapped into the township market. There are things don't have frills. According to me, that's why I'm trying to exactly locate spa on why is it best cost. Yes, there are things that are pricey, there are things that are fine. And it's very reasonable according to me.
Okay, so now remember, forget your general knowledge.
Okay.
Remember to look at what the case study says, okay? So the case study mentioned SPA and mentioned all those different, SPA as an umbrella group now, not SPA as the grocery store you are talking about. SPA is a corporation. And as a corporation, it has different types of grocery stores under its umbrella, of which the SPA grocery store that you're talking about is only one. And you were asked to identify for the corporation what strategy they were using. And because the corporation has all those different Save More, which is very cheap, and SPA, and I can't even remember all the others offhand, that is why the answer was best cost. If you were only asked the SPA grocery store that is down the road from you, yeah, I would also probably call that best cost. Even the individual SPA grocery store. But the question wasn't about that SPA down the road from you. It was the SPA corporation with all of those different units that were mentioned. But now
No, I
sometimes
get.
on that, yes?
Now I'm saying if based on their explanation, I get you. Look at the group because your Save More is very cheap, and then the other spa it's a bit high end. So looking at the group, you build it, it's more accessible and competes with your Karim and stuff like that. So the way you explain it as a group, no, it does make sense. Thank you.
Okay. All right. But now on that note, I want to show you in your study guide how you are sometimes also asked that question, revised study guide, yeah? Let's just go to lesson 6. Because sometimes you are given a corporation, but then with and a number of business units for that corporation, just like this example in your study guide, and you are asked to identify the business level strategy for each business unit. In other words, you are looking at the business level strategy for the corporate, but for each business unit. Where is that now? Isn't there's a spur thing not in here? The spur example not in the revised strategy anymore. No, it doesn't look like it. Is it before this? Let me just check. It was a very nice example of spur. And I'm just going to try and find the first semester study guide, just as an example. I want to give you this example. And I know that I think spur was in the updated study guide. Let me see if I can find updated lesson 1. Updated study. Yeah. Let me see if I can just find that spur example, because this has been asked like this before. So I just want to make sure that you are aware of different ways in which questions get asked.
It's on page, right?
I'll be with you with questions now. Let me just see if I can find the spur example.
Hi, Lee, it's on page 72,
Of which one? The revised or the
the
updated?
revised one.
Is it? Okay, let me go there. Revised study guide. Yeah, 72, you say?
Yeah.
Oh, have they taken it? Because they do speak about business level strategies in lesson 5 now.
It's the feedback on Spur.
Resource-based view. 72. It's not on, oh, there. Spur.
But that's VRIO.
Does it ask the question though? I don't see the answer. Let me look in the updated study guide. Study guide update, yeah. Here we are. Here's what I'm referring to. So this is how the question can be asked as well. The Spur Corporation is composed of different brands. Identify business strategies pursued by the Spur Corporation group. Conduct additional research, blah, blah, blah. And in that case, you have to then look at each individual business unit. WUSA differentiation, Spur best cost. So they could have, in your assignment 2, they could have asked you to identify the business level strategy for each of those business units under SPA. So just be aware of that as well. It might not be, you might not just be for the corporation as a whole, you might have to identify individual business, the strategies for individual business units. But okay, I'll get to the questions now. But whichever way the question is asked, if it's asked for the corporate business level strategy, as with the SPA, or if you are asked to look at individual business units, remember, one unit will have one strategy. So using that SPUR example, you won't go and apply differentiation, low cost, best cost, focus to HUSARs. You're only going to apply differentiation. You are not going to apply everything to the SPUR. You are only going to apply best cost. One business, one strategy. Okay? Yes, Jenna.
Hi Lee. So I just want to clarify. Let's say if we get Pick and Pay group,
Yes.
and it's the stores, it's the Pick and Pay clothing and the Pick and Pay liquor. Would that then also be based cost? Because you also get the best value for your money.
It would depend, just generally, probably. Okay, like because they're very much like a spa.
Yeah.
The competitors to spa. It would depend though on the case study
Okay.
and what the case study mentions.
Okay.
So if they start talking about unique products and you know, looking for or providing unique services or whatever for customers with higher order tastes, then you
Yes.
might have to say differentiation. But
Okay.
generally, yes, in general terms, yes, best cost.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay. Any other questions? Let me go to the chat line.
Sorry, Lee. I want
Yo.
to find out what are the things that we need to look for to determine that this is the best, this is the different, like in terms of what are those things that you need to look for to identify?
For best cost specifically.
Yes.
Okay, let's go to the study guide and look at what the study guide says. Have I got the study guide still open? What's that? Oh, no, that's not that. Where did I now close my study guide? Okay, let me just get the study guide open again. I think I closed it by mistake. Revised study guide. There we are. Let's go to the best cost. So you are given Pick and Pay, let us say, okay? And you've got a case study on Pick and Pay and you're told to identify the business level strategy. So what you would do is you would go to look at all of these different strategies very quickly. Obviously, you should have summarized them by now. And you are going to look at the characteristics of each strategy, okay? So cost, low cost leadership, cheaper. If something's cheaper, it's probably going to be cost leadership. If something's different, it's going to be differentiation. If it provides better value for money, it's going to be best cost. And then you can see that each strategy gives you characteristics. So you're going to use this as a basis to identify the strategy of the case study. Where is best cost? So here we are, here's best cost. Okay, so best cost, of course, is a combination of cost leadership and differentiation. And its main goal is to give, as we've said, more value for money. So they keep their prices as low as possible, not the lowest, as low as possible. So they are very competitive, but the quality is still reasonable. So it's quality and cost that will tell you if it's best cost. Okay. So that is, you can see McDonald's has a strict quality control process, although we know it's best cost. Okay, but they use standardization to achieve the lowest cost possible. So it's quality, decent quality, not elite quality, decent quality together with a reasonable price. Not the cheapest price, but a reasonable price. And here the characteristics are, and this is what you will go and look for in the case study. You will go and see if there are any examples of this in the case study. Does that help, I hope?
Yes, Lee. Thank you so much.
Okay, let's have a look. So the January 2022, which was they also used Investec just like the May-June 2022. First of all, you were asked to identify the business level strategy that Investec is using, which is focus differentiation. Then you were asked, would you recommend a change of business level strategy? And you were asked to identify your answer. It was only for 2 marks. So some people said yes, because with COVID, many people don't have great income. So to get more customers, maybe they should look for, they should change their business level strategy to best cost, maybe. All right. And then the third part in January, February was, you were then given a little statement. Investec is thinking of changing its business level strategy through a low-cost business account option that would target small businesses with a turnover of 250,000 per year or more. And then you were told, use the suitability and feasibility criteria, because that's the other thing about this lesson, is that you are sometimes asked to evaluate the business level strategy, in which case you go to the end of the chapter, pages 86 to 89, and evaluating strategic choices. So if you're asked to evaluate, that means not just choose a strategy and discuss it. You are given a strategy, or you have identified, now you must evaluate that strategy, and you must use these 3 criteria. Very badly done in the assignment: suitability, acceptability, and feasibility. Okay? So remember, that's the something else you can be asked for on lesson 6. So let's have a look at the, okay, I've discussed the May, June of this year's question on lesson 6. If you just had to identify a McDonald's strategy and give reasons why, and it was for 7 marks. And you had to focus on quality at affordable prices. That's the criterion for best cost, okay? Yeah, I think that was it. Let's have a look at what else have I got here. May, June 2022, let me just, at least, sorry, November 2022, let me see how the question was asked. Okay, it wasn't asked. Oh yeah, it did ask it. It was ShopRite, and you had to identify the business level strategies of ShopRite, because it gave you all the different ShopRite business units, and you had to look at various business units and identify the strategy for the various business units, and then also evaluate the strategy. So please just make sure you remember, evaluation means this. Evaluation of a strategy means this. Identifying the strategy means looking at the 5 different strategies, the theory of the 5 different strategies, and going to look for which are best represented in the case study. Okay, hand up, Gladys. Do you have a question? Gladys, hello. Dipua, I see you keep unmuting yourself. Gladys, I'm still waiting. Do you have a question? Reshu Ketsu, maybe I should try and pronounce your proper name, although you said I could call you Gladys the other day. All right, while Gladys is sorting herself out there, TC, did you hear were you there at the very big, were you in the class at the very beginning of the class?
I know. I had problem with connections. So when I came in, you were in the middle of answering something that I asked on Thursday.
Okay, all right. Yes. like I mentioned to the students, I think I was suffering from mental fatigue by the time we got to look at the external environment question that was asked in that May-June exam that is in the exam guidelines. And you were going on, but how do strengths and weaknesses fit in with that? And I answered you wrongly. That was the whole point I made. So would you like me to quickly repeat that again?
Please
Or did
do,
you?
please, because I took notes from what you wrote on Thursday, of what you said on Thursday.
Sorry, Investec, is that you, Gladys? TC, I'll get back to you in a minute. What was the question about Investec? Okay, so just going back to that question 2B, for those of you that might have logged on late, you were asked to recommend how to counteract the threats that you'd identified from the external environment. And the point that I was making that I didn't explain very well on Thursday is, of course, you have to use your internal strengths to counteract threats. So Ms. Mawila, it gives you a very nice example where the person identifies a threat, competition for Investec, and then identifies a strength. Let me go back there to that. What have we got here? What's this? No. Oh, yes, it is that. Okay. Yeah. So it was this one. No. Business level. Yeah. No, sorry. Question 2. Yeah. This was the question that I explained very badly. So the 2A, you had to identify 5 threats. And then you had to recommend how to overcome those 5 threats that you identified. So this student, one of the threats was competition from other retail banks. Okay, so that's from the market environment. So the recommendation is that Investec would have to set high standards for service delivery. So of course, that's an internal strength to counteract competition. You must improve your service delivery, reducing call center waiting times, adding features to mobile banking, etc. And that was what I wasn't explaining very well on Thursday. The second threat, slow economic recovery post-COVID. So that's kind of marketing related. How do you get back to where you were? And here the student says, look at the products and the programs. And again, that's an internal strength, such as better interest rates, better home loans, 90-day interest-free payback period. So it is applying internal strengths to overcome those external threats. That's a very important addition I wanted to make. Okay, Gladys, your hand is still up?
Hear me? I've tried to switch the devices. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, I wanted to find out regarding the strategies. If you select, remember there's 2 questions they ask to select and also to evaluate. If you
Yes.
select the wrong strategy, and then on the second portion where they say that you must evaluate, will you be penalized on selecting the incorrect strategy and also evaluating it?
As far as I can remember, in the past, you couldn't give a mark now for the strategy because, of course, it was the wrong one that you would have mentioned now in the evaluation thing. But you were given marks for using the correct evaluation tools. So you didn't get naught. You got some marks, but not all of the marks.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense.
Okay, Letter. Do you have a question, Letter?
Am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so regarding the threat, is it threats are internal, not external?
No. Threats are external. Strengths and weaknesses are internal.
Yeah, okay. But I think on my first assignment, there was a comment from the marker saying that I stated threats the external. So I was so confused.
Okay, but your assignment one, let me just look at what assignment one said. Let me just open the 3701 tutorial letter 101. Let's just have a look at what you're referring to. Oh, is this question one? Let me just see. What have I got here? Was this? Oh, that was Bell. Yes. Okay.
Oh,
So you're
yeah,
referring
no,
to this letter. You're referring to this question in assignment one.
I think
Use the information in the case study to identify 2 strengths, 2 weaknesses, 2 opportunities, and 2 threats.
yeah,
Is that
okay.
what you're referring to?
I think I was referring to the weaknesses. They're internal, right?
You were referring to what?
Weaknesses.
I can't hear that. Sorry.
Weaknesses.
I'm not getting you.
So I want to know the difference between weaknesses and threats.
Oh, weaknesses. Weaknesses.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. My
Yeah,
apologies.
I
A
think I get
weakness.
yes.
Okay, so weakness is an internal problem that a company has where they don't have resources or they don't have capabilities. So, for example, a company might have marketing as a weakness because they don't have a marketing specialist. So, marketing might be a weakness, which means that they cannot make a use of opportunities which are external because they can't market themselves properly.
Okay.
Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay. All right. There was somebody else who had a hand up, but I see the hand has come down. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is it then. I really wish you the very, very, very best for Monday morning. Remember, I have said before, Fezile, I'll get to you in a minute. Oh, there are lots of hands up now. Remember, I've said to you before, if you have individual concerns between now and Monday morning, you're very welcome to WhatsApp me directly or to email me directly, and I will try and assist you with any problems, okay? So, Fezile, you had your hand up
Yes.
first.
Yes, the exam guideline that you're referring to,
Yes.
where can we get it?
Are you a supplementary student or do you have access to Miss Mawela's My UNISA site?
No, I'm not sure if I have, but I'm not a supplementary student.
Okay, what I will do after we finish this, are you on my WhatsApp group?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I will post the exam guidelines onto the WhatsApp group, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mercy?
Yeah, I think it was the same question where we can get our exam. There is no exam link or what?
That exam guidelines has an explanation that tells you how to go to the exam.
Okay, thank you.
So are you on my WhatsApp group?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so please read through the exam guidelines carefully, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, Eugene?
Ma'am, can you please ask our lecturer to check her emails, Miss Mawele?
Okay, I will send her a message and just ask her to check. Is it a query about your assignment or something?
Yes, I didn't get my marks, so.
Okay,
so,
and you have emailed her.
Yes, I have.
Okay, all right. I will ask her if she could please check. I know she's very, very, very under pressure at the moment, but I will ask her.
Thank you.
Okay, I will add my WhatsApp number. Okay, there we go. Somebody's posted the WhatsApp link for those of you that are asking. All right, so there's the WhatsApp link. Thank you very much. It has been shared. Mercy, have you got another question?
Oh no, I'll lower my hand down.
Okay, Eugene, your question is done. Karen?
Hi, sorry, Lee. Where do we find the questions from the June paper and the answers so we can have a look at that?
Are you talking about June 2023?
Yes.
Unfortunately, they won't be freely available, but I know you students, you guys have all sorts of resources, and certainly the MNG Telegram group seems to share all sorts of things. Unfortunately, I cannot share it with you. I'm obligated not to share any exam papers. So I would suggest you go maybe onto the Telegram group and ask for the
Okay,
June.
how do I get onto the Telegram group?
Oh, I don't have that link. So maybe one of the other students can provide that link for you.
You have to search UNISA group on Google and then you search the group you want and join.
There we go.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. Can you just repeat that?
Okay, you have to search UNISA group on Google. After that, you will search the group you want to join.
Using a code at
Yeah.
MNG3701.
Yes, MNG3701, and then so you go onto Google and you Google MNG3701 and the groups come up.
You Google UNISA.
But the easy thing is to download Telegram app, the first thing. Then once you download it, search for UNISA bots. On UNISA bot, you say // search MNG3701, and then it takes you through to join the group.
Okay, thank you. I am on Telegram, so I think I'll do it that way.
Zanele, your hand is up again.
Basically, I was wondering last time when we had the class on Thursday, someone was recording. Can that person please upload the recording, because it's not available? Even this one is recorded.
Okay, so as I've said numerous times, I'm an external lecturer. The person who sets these things up for me, the UNISA person, is not available between now and Monday. So Thursday's lesson and today's lesson will only be available after Monday, the recordings, which doesn't help. But what I can do, and I'm not promising, but I will go and look for my semester 1 lessons, because I did exactly the same thing. Okay, so I will go and look for the lesson 3 and 4 recording from semester 1, which will cover the same topic, but not necessarily the same discussions, but I mean, the topics are there. And I will do the same thing for the lesson 5 and 6. And I will post the semester 1 recordings. That's the best I can do. I can do nothing. I have no control over this UNISA site and the UNISA recordings that you're all seeing. Okay.
Okay, the semester 1, the one that is on YouTube.
That is on
YouTube.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. No, I have that one.
Okay, that's the best I can do for you. I'm sorry.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. For the one on YouTube, how do I search?
Pardon?
For that one she's talking about, that is on YouTube. How
Yes.
do I access it? Do I search?
I will post the links from the first semester for lessons 4 and 5. Lessons 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. I will post the semester 1 recordings onto the WhatsApp group.
Okay, well, I'll appreciate
this afternoon.
that so
I will
much.
post them. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you so
Tando?
much, Lee. This was so helpful.
Okay, you may leave if you like. Let me just answer these last. Tando, do you have a question?
Issue was the first, but when you are saying you're going to send the link, I'm covered.
Okay, perfect. Ambrosius?